Hello, story lovers. Get ready for a wild and wacky adventure with our favorite family and their yellow, banana-loving friends. One sunny morning, Margot, Edith, and Agnes burst into Gru's Gru! Gru! They shouted together. Agnes, clutching her fluffy unicorn, bounced on her toes. Can we please, go on a road trip to see the giant trees at Sequoia National Park? Margot held up a brochure. It says here they're the biggest trees in the whole world. It would be so educational. Edith, pulling her pink hat down, added, yeah, and we could climb stuff. And maybe see a bear. Gru looked up from his latest invention, a fartinata, 5,000. He looked at their hopeful faces and couldn't say no. A road trip, eh? All right, girls. Pack your bags. We're going on an adventure. The girls cheered. As they ran to pack, a small army of yellow figures in denim overalls started chattering excitedly. The Minions! They heard road trip and were not going to be left behind. Kevin, Stuart, and Bob immediately started packing their own essentials. Bananas, a ukulele, and a tiny teddy bear. Soon, everyone was ready. The girls piled into Gru's long, strange-looking car. Gru took the driver's seat, and the Minions, well, they squeezed in everywhere. Some were in the trunk, some were on the roof rack, and Bob managed to get the front passenger's seat, much to Stuart's annoyance. All right, team! Next up, giant trees, Gru announced, and they sped off down the highway. Everything was going great. They sang songs, played I Spy, and Agnes tried to teach the Minions the lyrics to the unicorn song. The Minions just sang Banana to the same tune, which made everyone giggle. But then, sputter, dot, bang. The Grummobile coughed, shuddered, and rolled to a stop on the side of a long, empty road. A puff of purple smoke billowed from the engine. Oh, dear, Gru muttered, getting out to look. He opened the hood, and an even bigger cloud of purple smoke poofed into his face. He coughed. This is not good. The turbo oscillator has clearly defluxed. The girls looked worried. Margot checked the map. We're in the middle of nowhere. Edith kicked a tire. So much for seeing bears. Agnes's lip began to tremble. Are we stuck forever? Just then, Kevin, the tall, two-eyed Minion leader, hopped out. He looked at the smoking engine, then chattered a command to the other Minions. B, du, turari, roti, IAMO. Instantly, the Minions sprang into action. It was like watching the world's funniest and most chaotic pit crew. One Minion, Dave, pulled out a giant wrench, bigger than he was, and started banging on a random pipe. Another, Jerry, started squirting the engine with a water bottle, shouting, "We will," like a tiny firefighter. Stuart, who always wanted to be the star, whipped out his ukulele and started playing a dramatic, fast-paced song, as if it would magically fix the car. Bob, trying to be helpful, offered the smoking engine his teddy bear, Tim. Gru watched, his hands on his hips. Minions? No. That's not helping. But Kevin had a plan. He directed a team of Minions to form a pyramid. They climbed on top of each other, wobbling dangerously, until the Minion on top could reach a strange, glowing part of the engine. He pulled out a banana from his overalls, peeled it, and stuck the banana peel right where the part was sparking. Nitrogen monoxide! Gru yelled. That will only make it ... double quote. Suddenly, there was a zap, and the banana peel glowed bright yellow. The purple smoke turned green, and then the engine roared back to life, humming more smoothly than ever before. The Minions cheered, "Kenpai!" and danced around. Gru stared, completely stunned. I don't believe it. The banana peel must have completed the circuit with its potassium content. Unconventional, but ... brilliant. The girls cheered from inside the car. Yay! Minions! Back on the road, The adventure continued. A few hours later, they got a flat tire. Stop! The car lurched to the side. You have got to be kidding me, Gru sighed, resting his forehead on the steering wheel. Before he could even get the jack out, the minions were on it again. This time, they didn't have a spare tire. But they did have a giant, inflatable unicorn floaty that Agnes had packed for a hypothetical lake. With a lot of huffing and puffing, hop, hop, they inflated the giant unicorn. Then, working together, they lifted the car and strapped the unicorn floaty where the flat tire should be. Gru shook his head. That is the most ridiculous thing I have ever seen. It will never work. But as he drove, the unicorn head bounced happily along the road, and the car rode surprisingly smoothly. People in other cars pointed and laughed, but hey, it worked! They looked like a parade float on a mission! Finally, just as the sun was beginning to set, they saw a sign, "Welcome to Sequoia National Park!" They parked the car unicorn tire and all in stepped out. They were surrounded by trees so enormous they looked like skyscrapers built by nature. The air was fresh and smelled of pine. "Whoa," breathed Margot. "They're so big," whispered Agnes, staring straight up at a giant redwood, her eyes wide with wonder. Edith just ran to the nearest tree and tried to hug it, but her arms couldn't even reach a quarter of the way around. "This is awesome." Gru smiled, watching his girls. Despite the car trouble, the smoke, and the bouncy unicorn tire, it was all worth it. He looked over at the minions, who were now attempting to climb one of the smaller but still huge trees, tumbling over each other like little yellow bowling pins. Kevin, Stuart, and Bob stood beside Gru, looking up at the majestic trees. Bob pointed up and said softly, "Banana," comparing the tall tree to a giant banana. Gru chuckled and patted Bob's head. "No, Bob, not a banana, but just as wonderful." They spent the rest of the evening exploring, roasting marshmallows over a minion-made campfire, which one minion lit, using goggles as a magnifying glass, and telling stories under the stars. The Grummobile, with its strange banana pelfix engine and unicorn floaty tire, sat proudly in the parking lot, a monument to the craziest and best road trip ever. And as they all snuggled into their sleeping bags, Agnes whispered, "Gru, this was the best day." Gru looked at his 3 amazing daughters and the dozens of loyal, yellow, chaos-causing friends. "Yes, it was," he said softly. "The best. What a wild ride." It just goes to show that with a little creativity and a lot of bananas, you can solve any problem. Thanks for joining our story time today. If you had fun, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more amazing adventures. We'll see you next time. Bye.